Hey, how's it going? My name's Sam, and I'm a Hawktail player. What we do is we go out into the world and we find nonfiction stories. What that means are they're true stories, very real stories. We learn them and share them with you guys. Has anyone ever been scared of something before? Like a test or the dark or maybe scared to swim? It's okay because everyone experiences fear sometimes. Well, my aunt is a really good counselor, and she told me a really cool story about someone that she knew who overcame his biggest fear. And it taught me that sometimes you have to face your fears to get over them. Do you guys want to hear it? Okay, I'm going to tell it from her point of view. So, about 20 years ago, two parents and their son David came to my office. He was about 8 or 9 years old and was really scared of dogs. Because when he was young, like 3 or 4, they had a feist. Does anyone know what a feist is? Well, if you don't know, a feist is a small dog with really pointy ears and a lot of energy. And feists love to jump. And this feist was special because he could jump higher than any other dog in the world. In fact, this dog could jump 6 feet straight up in the air. That's this high. Well, this dog loved to play and jump on people, and it jumped on David all the time. But David was so young that it would knock him down and hurt him. And so he eventually developed a fear for dogs. His parents didn't know what to do about it, so they got rid of the dog. But what the parents later learned was that their son had to face his fear of dogs, and this is why. David used to be an outdoorsy boy. They had a big backyard and played in it all the time. Does anyone else like to play outside? Well, David's backyard was right on a beautiful golf course, and David loved to play golf with his dad. Everybody swing your golf club with me. 4. Well, they'd go outside and they'd play golf every day, and they were out there for hours, and they'd even stay after hours after the golf course closed. And one time they were out there just hitting golf balls around, and after a few minutes, this black lab, which is a really big dog, came running toward him from far away. And even though his dad was telling him that the dog was friendly, just wanted to come play, David started getting really scared. Immediately, David climbed up his dad like a mountain until he got on his dad's shoulders. Well, this experience made David even more scared of dogs, to the point where he wouldn't even play in his own backyard because he was scared that another dog would come. So, David's parents bring him to my office. Now, I have a dog, Shaffer, who is very sweet, but is a big German Shepherd. That's one of the dogs that the policemen have, a really big dog. And Shaffer goes everywhere with me, even work, and is a super nice dog. But I knew how David felt about dogs, so I put Shaffer in another room so that I could meet David and he'd not be worried about my dog. So David and I go into my office, and I do a typical evaluation, and I can tell that he's on edge because he keeps watching the door, hoping that Shaffer doesn't find his way to us. I assured him that yes, Shaffer is a big dog, but is very well trained. This dog was actually special because he helps kids get over their fears in a lot of different ways. I showed him a picture of Shaffer, and I told him to take it home and hang it up on his wall, and to look at it as many times as he will in a day. I told him to look at it and really think about it and see if some of his nervousness goes away. And that is what we started with. Eventually, after meeting with David for a few more weeks, he decides that he's ready to meet Shaffer, my big dog. So David comes to the office with his parents and waits outside the door that Shaffer is on the other side of. Now, Shaffer is a very well-behaved dog, and on the other side of this door is a long hallway. And Shaffer is laying at the end of the hallway because I told him before I opened the door to introduce David to Shaffer. I could see David's knees knocking together as he was visibly scared. Quickly, I assured him that Shaffer will stay and won't approach us once we open the door unless we say that it's okay for him to do it. Well, as soon as we opened the door, Shaffer was laying down at the end of the hallway and not moving. But David was still afraid and jumped behind a couch that was in the hallway trying to hide from Shaffer. After a few weeks of being in the same room with Shaffer, David built up enough courage to finally let Shaffer approach him. After a bit, David eventually started to do tricks with Shaffer. He'd tell him to sit, to lay down, to roll over, all those typical tricks that you do with a dog. A few weeks after that, we got to the point where we would go on walks with Shaffer, and sometimes David would even hold the leash. Everybody walk their dog with me? And sometimes, so David would hold the leash. Now this was a big milestone for David. And then eventually we got to the point where we would play hide and go seek in the dark. Me and David would go hide and Shaffer would find us. Well, David's last appointment with me and Shaffer was something that I will never forget. David made a lot of progress over the time that we worked together. And if you would have asked me, I would have told you that he was over his fear of dogs. The last day we were going for a walk and David looked at me and said, "Before we finish, we need to do one more thing." And I said, "What's that?" To which David replied, "Let Shaffer chase me." Because that's how this all started. So we did that. I held Shaffer on a leash and I let him chase after David. However, after just a few minutes of that, David insisted that I take Shaffer off the leash and let Shaffer chase him with no restraints. So I did. About 3 weeks later, David and his parents went and got a dog, which grew up to be David's best friend. He was no longer afraid to go to his friends' houses because of their dogs, and he wasn't afraid to play golf in his backyard. In fact, David and his dog played so much golf together that David is now a golf player in college at UNC Chapel Hill. I'll never forget David and the lesson that he taught me. You have to face your fears to get over your fears, no matter what the fear is. What'd you learn from this story? That's it.